Beyond the escape, reclaiming life after trauma. I want to start with something we rarely talk about: the after. Recently, I had the privilege of speaking with Shaquana Tirzah Bell, a visionary advocate whose work has fundamentally transformed how we understand the journey of domestic violence survivors. Her insights are nothing short of revolutionary. Through her fearless advocacy and profound wisdom, Tirzah has created safe harbors for countless survivors, illuminating paths forward that many couldn't previously imagine. What makes her work so extraordinary is her insistence that we look beyond the moment of escape to the long, winding road of healing that follows. We've all heard stories about survivors of domestic violence, the harrowing escapes, the dramatic court cases, the restraining orders. But what happens next? What happens when the immediate danger passes, when the adrenaline fades, when you're left standing in the wreckage of what was once your life? That's the question that kept surfacing during my conversation with Tirzah. Her insights reveal a profound truth. Escaping abuse is just the beginning of the story, not the end. The real journey, the one we don't talk about enough, is what happens after you walk away. Think about it. We celebrate when someone leaves an abusive relationship, as we should. But then what? Where's the manual for rebuilding your sense of self, for learning to trust again, for finding joy in a world that suddenly feels both terrifyingly vast and suffocatingly small? According to Tirzah Bell, this is where the real work begins. This is where survivors face perhaps their greatest challenge, confronting the fears that linger long after physical safety has been secured. Fear doesn't evaporate when you change your locks. It doesn't disappear when the court grants that order of protection. It lives in your body. It whispers in your ear at night. It makes you question your worth, your judgment, your very right to exist. And here's the thing about fear: it's sneaky, it disguises itself as practicality, as caution, as wisdom. I'm just being careful, you tell yourself as you triple check the locks. I'm just being realistic. You think as you decline that invitation, that opportunity, that chance to step back into the world. But what if, and this is the revolutionary idea that Tirzah Bell champions, what if facing those fears is actually the catalyst that transforms trauma into growth? Consider Angela Kim's story. After surviving years of physical, psychological, and financial abuse, Angela didn't just escape, she emerged. She transformed her pain into purpose by becoming an advocate for changing how domestic violence is portrayed in media. But this transformation didn't happen automatically. It required Angela to confront her deepest fear: that she wouldn't be believed, that her experience wasn't extreme enough to matter, that without visible scars or a tragic ending, her story wasn't worth telling. These fears weren't irrational. As a teenager, Angela had internalized damaging narratives from limited news coverage that suggested only the most severe cases of abuse deserved attention. This left her questioning her own worthiness as a survivor. Sound familiar? How many of us have minimized our own pain because we've been taught that trauma comes in hierarchies, that some suffering is more valid than others? Angela's breakthrough came when she chose to face this fear head on. She began sharing her story publicly, not just the dramatic moments, but the subtle, insidious ways abuse had infiltrated her life. She urged journalists to cover the full spectrum of domestic violence, including non physical forms that often go unrecognized. The result? Her advocacy helped broaden public understanding of what survivorship actually looks like. She shifted the conversation from focusing solely on crisis points to exploring the nuanced, ongoing journey of healing. This is what Tirzah Bell means when she says facing your fears is a catalyst for growth and healing. It's not about reckless exposure to danger, it's about refusing to let fear dictate the boundaries of your life after trauma. But here's where things get complicated. Our society has a strange relationship with survivors. We want them to be simultaneously broken and triumphant, damaged enough to validate our concern, but recovered enough to make us comfortable. We love the moment of escape. It makes for a great movie climax. But we get squeamish about the messy, nonlinear process of healing that follows. This brings me to Tirzah's second crucial insight. The journey after trauma matters as much as the escape itself. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a movie about domestic violence that didn't end with the protagonist either dying tragically or walking triumphantly into the sunset? Where are the stories about the Tuesday 3 years later when a certain song comes on the radio and suddenly you're back there? Or the moment you realize you've gone a whole day without checking over your shoulder? These are the moments that make up real recovery, the small victories, the setbacks, the slow, painstaking process of rebuilding trust, not just in others, but in yourself. The Victim Advocacy Program at Fort Meade understands this reality. They offer not just crisis intervention, but ongoing support for survivors navigating complex systems like law enforcement and courts while managing trauma. They've recognized that healing isn't a single event, but a journey that requires consistent, compassionate guidance. What makes their approach so effective is their commitment to addressing both immediate safety concerns and long term recovery needs. They understand that survivors need different kinds of support at different stages of their journey. In the immediate aftermath, they might need help with protective orders or emergency housing. Months later, they might need assistance accessing therapy or rebuilding financial independence. Years after, they might need community as they navigate new relationships or career changes. This comprehensive approach acknowledges a truth that Tirzah Bell emphasizes. Recovery isn't linear. It's not a checkbox you complete and move on from. It's an ongoing process of reclaiming your life one day at a time. And here's where I want to challenge our collective thinking. What if we stopped treating survival as the end goal and started seeing it as the beginning? What if we created spaces where survivors could not just exist, but thrive, where they could discover new passions, rebuild trust, and learn to experience joy without guilt? The Survivor Advocacy Project at UC Berkeley Law is pioneering this approach. They're training future lawyers to support survivors not just through immediate legal crises, but throughout their long term recovery journey. They're addressing policy gaps and ensuring that every survivor, regardless of their circumstances, receives the ongoing support they need. Their work highlights something profound. Healing isn't just about addressing what happened to you, it's about reclaiming agency over what happens next. This brings me to Terz's third and perhaps most powerful insight. Your story has power. Sharing it can break cycles and inspire others. Now, I want to be crystal clear about something. No survivor owes the world their story. No one should ever feel pressured to transform their trauma into a public narrative if that's not right for them. But for those who do choose to share, whether through art, advocacy, writing, or simply having honest conversations with loved ones, there's a unique kind of healing that can occur. When Angela Kim began speaking publicly about her experience, something unexpected happened. Not only did she help shift the national conversation around domestic violence, but she also experienced a profound personal transformation. By reclaiming her narrative, by refusing to let her abuser or societal expectations define her story, she reclaimed her power. This is the paradox of trauma. Sometimes the very thing that threatens to destroy us becomes the foundation upon which we build something new. I've seen this phenomenon repeatedly in my conversations with survivors. The woman who starts a support group because she couldn't find one when she needed it. The man who becomes an advocate for legislative change because the system failed him. The parent who breaks generational cycles of abuse by choosing a different path for their children. These aren't just inspiring stories, they're examples of what psychologists call post traumatic growth, the profound positive change that can emerge from the struggle with highly challenging life circumstances. So I challenge you today. How will you help rewrite this story? Will you be the one who sees beyond the escape to the journey that follows? Will you create space for the messy, nonlinear process of healing? Will you honor both the pain and the possibility in survivors' stories? Because here's what I know for certain: when we dare to look beyond the escape, when we commit to supporting the full journey of healing, we don't just help individual survivors, we transform our communities. We break cycles of violence that have persisted for generations. We create a world where trauma isn't the end of the story, but rather the beginning of a new one. The wisdom that Tirzah offers us is revolutionary in its simplicity. Facing our fears becomes the catalyst for our greatest growth. The journey after trauma matters just as much as the escape itself, and our stories, when we're ready to share them, have the power to heal not just ourselves, but our world. Take one bold step today. Reach out to someone who might be struggling. Volunteer with an advocacy organization. Examine your own beliefs about survivors and healing, or simply commit to being the kind of person who makes space for both pain and possibility. Because in the end, this isn't just about domestic violence survivors, it's about all of us. Our collective responsibility to create a world where healing isn't just possible, but expected, where after isn't an afterthought, but the beginning of something beautiful. Thank you.